Hello, friends. Welcome today. Hey, I have Pam Ostrowski with us for Answers with Experts, and she's got some great questions that she's going to be answering today. Pam, what are we going to be talking about today?
Oh my gosh, probably some of the most popular questions I get from my clients. We're going to be talking about the transition and some of the behaviors that happen with transitioning to a care community. And then we're going to be talking about visiting. What does visiting look like? How long? What do you say? What do you do? Because so many families are confused by that. We're also going to talk about the fact that sometimes family members and family dynamics can make things pretty difficult. And so how do you handle that? And then a couple of other topics. And of course, if you guys have questions, put them in the chat and we'll make sure that we get those taken care of.
Beautiful. Well, hey, as we wait for a few more people to come, let's get ready to get started. All right.
Awesome.
See you all in a few minutes. So Pam Ostrowski, she experienced a 14-year journey of caring for and supporting her mother and father, who both lived with dementia at different times in their journey. After that experience, she realized she wanted to help other families navigate that journey so they didn't have to go through some of the same things that she had to go through. So she became a certified dementia practitioner, certified senior advisor, which is a fairly rare and hard to get certification, and she became certified in dementia care. She has now written a book. It's called It's Not That Simple. It's Not That Simple, Helping Families Navigate the Alzheimer's Journey. I have a copy to give away today. And so if you want to start putting in the chat questions you've got for Pam or your own journey, what is something from your own journey you want Pam to know about? I'm going to be picking one of you to give this away. And Pam later on may also have a question where she's going to give a book away as well. So It's Not That Simple, Helping Families Navigate the Alzheimer's Journey. Before we get into the questions, Pam, can you just tell our audience kind of why there's 1,000 books on Alzheimer's? What's unique about yours?
So it's a guidebook. I use the story of our 14-year journey as a way to move the tips and guidance along. So it's not just our story. It includes everything from the science behind dementia and Alzheimer's. What's the difference? How do you get tested for it? What behaviors are you looking for? All the way through when's the right time to talk about living arrangements? What options are out there? Because it's not your father's care community. It's not skilled nursing. And just kind of walk them through, how do you visit? How do you communicate? The emotional roller coaster, which we're going to be talking about a bit today. And then, kind of even talking about when the end is near. So each of those chapters has key takeaways so that you can quickly reference, and then conversation starters, which actually includes possible wording, because sometimes you don't even know where to start with the conversation, right? So being able to say, use these words, and being able to read from the book with your family members, with your care team, to make sure that you're having these conversations and communications.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, you have a good morning from Tom Mayer.
Hey, Tom.
Well, saying good morning to you this morning. Morning, Tom. Thanks for being with us. All right. So, Pam, do you want to roll with one of the questions a family actually submitted for you ahead of time?
I would love that.
Going.
Let's
just
do
so
it.
Everyone knows, if we have two options, right? Today in the comments, you can be putting in your questions. However, you might be watching this recorded later, and if you're watching it recorded, the best thing to do is just text #answers to this cell phone, and it's a monitored cell phone 24/7. You can text anytime. You're not going to wake anybody up, and just text in your questions there. And so future episodes with Pam or other experts will be able to get your answers on the air. So for today, go ahead and put in the chat if you're live with us. Otherwise, text answers to 360-526-6201. All right, let's roll that video. This is from Jean. Jean has a question about visiting.
Jean is 93 and has just gone into memory care, and we're wondering, when is the best time to visit?
All right. So visiting is a tough question because we all have it. And basically, when she was talking about when is the best time to visit, we were talking about the care environment, and the transition had just happened. And so she said, should we wait 2 weeks? Because you read that a lot in various medium. And so we want to make sure that, when you're moving your loved one to a care community, give the care community a few days and your loved one a chance to transition and adapt and kind of get used to their new environment, as well as working with the caregivers so that they kind of get a feel for that. And then, so 3 or 4 days passes, you go visit. You can visit 2 to 3 times a week, basically. You don't need to really do every day. That kind of interrupts the care community's flow and routine. The one thing about people with dementia, and specifically Alzheimer's, is that they do need a routine. They do need to feel safe. And if you're popping in and participating in certain activities, but you're always there, when you leave, it's more traumatic to them. It makes them sad. And the one thing that we know about Alzheimer's is that emotions are the number one thing they retain. So if you're angry, if you're sad, if you're upset, if you're frustrated, stay away from the care community. Don't bring those emotions in with you. So when you visit, it's a happy time. You're making a moment of joy and a memory for you, and a happy day or a happy moment for them. So that's really important as part of the visits. And then I think we have another visit question, and I can go into more depth on that.
Perfect. Quick shout out from Mary. Mary, welcome from Ohio. We're glad you're with us today. Okay. Yes. So she's got a question on how long to visit.
We're also wondering, how long should we visit each time?
Exactly. So this is actually one of the most popular questions that I get. So basically, it's up to you. You ever hear that phrase, read the room? Well, so when you walk in, you can kind of get a feel for what your state your loved one is in. I want to make sure that everyone understands that this varies by day. With an person with Alzheimer's, like when I would walk in and see my mom, she might be sleeping, but I would still stay for 45 minutes. I would hold her hand. I'd talk with other residents. I was there so she could hear my voice. Mm-hmm. And if she woke up, she knew I was there. I would give her a kiss. I'd say, always really important for you to introduce yourself every time you see them, to say, hi, Mom. So she knows I'm her daughter. It's Pam. And that way her brain can hear, hi, Mom, it's Pam. Okay, I know who that is. And that doesn't mean that she ever reacted. She was non-vocal for the last 7 years of her life, which means there were no conversations, no jokes, none of that. So I had to communicate with her when I visited by doing things with her. And that's the really important part of visiting is I had someone ask the question, well, what do we talk about? And I said, well, depending on the state of your loved one, you may not be talking. You can talk with them, but they are not going to respond. They won't remember what you said. But it really does come down to those moments of joy and being able to actually work with them on whatever it is that they're doing. So I suggest that you come in 15, 30 minutes before an activity or a snack. And then you can do that activity or have the snack with them. And usually you're around a table, other people are interacting. They feel like their family is part of this bigger family that they've adopted. And it gives you a chance to actually get more comfortable with the care community as well yourself as a family member. And so I advise, again, so when you come in, a visit for length of time can be 1.5 hours to 2 hours if you want. I would not advise that you do 30 minutes 5 days a week. That is probably one of the worst things you can honestly do, because it's it's difficult for them and it's difficult for the care community. And honestly, what you're doing is you're seeing them briefly. They're not going to remember a brief visit, most likely. And then you're going to leave, and leaving is hard. And sometimes I can't decide whether it's harder for me or harder for her. And it really depends on the individual. So I used to kiss Mom on the cheek and say, I have to go take the dogs out. I will be back. And so again, my mom was in mid to late stage Alzheimer's at this stage and so she couldn't communicate, but she knew about the dogs. I would bring them and throw popcorn at them and entertain the entire community with my dogs. My mom was at Rock Creek in Surprise, Arizona. So it's a Koelsch community. And it used to be so much fun. We'd line everybody up in a circle. So if you have a dog that is a canine good citizen or is a good dog, not going to mess any carpets or do anything they shouldn't be doing. But my 2 Australian Shepherds would sit and we'd throw popcorn and they'd catch it with their mouths and everybody would applaud. And it was just a lot of fun. So those are the moments. That's what a visit is about. It's not to talk about Johnny's, soccer score and Susie's ballet recital, right? Because if you talk about those things, and this individual may not know who you're talking about anymore, I'm sorry but that is the case. It may make them sad that, oh, that's someone I know, and I don't know, I don't see them, and I don't, and so they feel that sense of loss. Don't bring up family members that aren't present, and avoid talking about, do you remember when, bringing a photo album and saying, do you remember this? Do you remember that? And of course they don't. I mean, you're in a memory care for a reason. And so instead, it's easier to focus on the present, stay where your feet are, as one of my friends says, and just be in that moment. So and my mom always loved Dunkin' Donuts coffee. And so I would bring this really large cup, and then I'd get her a cup, and then I'd pour hers into the smaller cup, and I'd drink from the larger cup. And one time I walked away to go get something, and I turn around and I look at her, and she's in a wheelchair at this point, and she's looking at the 2 cups, and she reaches over, a bigger reach, I might point out, and grabs my cup, the larger cup, to drink out of. And I said, wait, that's mine. This is yours. So, and she kind of laughed. And so they're always still in there, guys. Please remember that they are, their hearts, their minds, the core of who they are and how much they love you is in there. It's the disease that's blocking their behaviors and their ability to express that. So they're still in there. And I think that's probably something that brings peace of mind to all of us family members.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Oh, man. Yeah, I think one of the things you said about really joining in with the various social life that's happening in the community is so important. In my experience, I've been an activity director myself. When families come into the exercise class, into the sing-along, into the bingo game, into the travel club, and they're sitting with their loved one and they're interacting with the other elders in the room, it really helps their elder feel like, oh, it's not an us-them thing. It's not my family or all these other people. Instead, it really becomes, this is our family together. And it really helps that elder make relationships and build relationships so that they have someone to connect with when their loved one's not there. It's really powerful.
It is huge. And I remember specifically at Rock Creek that they would play music. They'd always have live music. And so what the caregivers actually taught me to do is, while my mom's in the wheelchair, I could hold her hand and then dance towards the wheelchair and then dance back. And then I'd dance around the wheelchair and hold her hand like we were doing a pirouette. It was all ways to learn how to interact with your loved one differently. And so, I mean, we could talk about this subject all day, but there's so many things. A really good activity director, which we had, is, someone who understands how to engage both the family and the loved ones. And so you get that kind of dynamic, and it's just wonderful. And honestly, just sharing these stories, which I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to, makes me smile. Brings a tear to my eye too. But I just remember having so many good times, eating hot fudge brownie sundaes with mom, and she just loved those. And she would flirt, believe it or not, with some of the male caregivers, and they loved her. And she would be, she'd wink at them and and it, it was just fun. They would get her, well, Loretta, I gave you a extra scoop of ice cream because I like you. And she'd, get all happy and, feel, basically even then, being flattered with compliments is still something that registers with us. So something to keep in mind.
So Gerald also sent in a question ahead of time. Do you want to go ahead and answer his question? He's got a unique question.
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Pam. I'm Gerald Reynolds. How are you? Well, my mom, her name is Dorothy St. Charles. She's originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. However, she's currently living in Arizona, Chandler, Arizona.
In memory care?
Correct, at the Copper Creek Inn Memory Care Facility.
Okay.
She's 73 years old, and she's been in that facility since about September.
September,
Correct.
Okay. And so she's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's?
Correct, Alzheimer's and dementia, yes ma'am.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, first off, when I visit my mom, I go visit her 5-6 days a week. And when I go, every time I go, it never fails. I walk into a room, and she has pictures with family pictures on her wall. And when I come visit her, they're always packed up, and they're stacked by the door, like she's leaving. And this is literally every time I go. So my question is, how is that preventable? Is there a way we can maybe change that behavior? This has been going on since she's had Alzheimer's. She likes to block doors, whether it's a chair. In the facility, though, she's using her stroller, her walker, which has wheels, so it's not really doing anything. But she put it in front of the door, I think as a safety measure. But she is doing that on a regular basis as well. Is that preventable? Can we change that or stop that? Or I don't know.
So, and it's an unusual question. So there's a couple of things. First of all, we have corrected Gerald's behaviors of going to visit 5 or 6 times a week. We'll talk about that. And, the thing that you have to remember is that this loved one never wanted you to give up your life and feel guilty about visiting. So he actually has another question about those emotions, which we all feel as family members. And we will get to the questions that are coming up in the chat, by the way. I just want to make sure people know we're not ignoring you. So with the situation with the photos, I said, did she pick the photos or did you pick the photos to put up on her wall? And he's assuming that she's getting ready to leave. And I said, there's more than one way. And that's what I do with my clients. I allow you to look at things from a different perspective. We work through, that could be one scenario or it could be this scenario. And there's different ways to react through each of those scenarios. So we try those out. And that's kind of when I work with people. And so when I was working with Gerald, I said, she didn't pick those photos. And he's like, no, she didn't. And I said, so maybe they're strangers to her. And she's wondering why there are photos of strangers in her room, which is a valid concern all of us would have, right? You don't keep the photo when you buy the frame, right? So I said, let's take those down. You can take those away. And then what I'd like you to do is bring an assortment of artwork and photos of other people that she may or may not recognize, and then make it an activity, something you can do with her as opposed to just sitting next to her and watching or talking to her about grandchildren, which she may or may not be able to relate to. So making an activity, it's like, do you like this one or do you like that one? Let's pick 5 and, pick 5 and then decide, do you want all 5 up on the wall or do you just want to let's pick 2 and then have her pick 2. But most likely it's that she doesn't know who's in those photos anymore. And she doesn't know why there's framed strangers in her room. Kind of creepy. As far as blocking the door and that type of thing, we actually don't know what her previous behaviors were. So again, you have to take this from a different mindset as opposed to the one we assume. Well, she's trying to feel safe. Well, no, she could have gone to the bathroom, left the walker there, and then gone to bed because she can walk without a walker. That's a little scary in my opinion, but so she could have just left it there. And that's maybe becomes her new habit in her new digs, her new community. And so she's just like, okay, I put the walker there so I can remember that when I leave the room, I need to take my walker. So it could be a visual reminder for her. But her son is scared to death that, she's trying to block the door and that could be a safety hazard. And it's like, not necessarily. And as he said, it had wheels so you could move it away. So really, we have to put ourselves in their shoes and realize that our logic does not apply to their world. They don't need your dose of reality. What they need to do is look at things uniquely and differently to ensure that you're addressing what they're concerned with versus us assuming that there's, certain behaviors are indicative of another type of emotion or action.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense because we have an assumption this is what's going on, but there might be a whole other range of options. Okay.
And most likely that's the case. So I said, take down the pictures and bring something new for the walls.
Yes. Now, I don't actually have, for some reason, the video with Gerald's other question. What was it you were mentioning about some emotional connection?
So so he went to take his daughter to college and was gone for a week.
Okay.
And so he felt really badly. How many people feel guilty when they don't visit their loved one for a week? Oh, everybody. Yeah. It doesn't even matter if your loved one has Alzheimer's or dementia. Frankly, if you don't visit somebody or see somebody for a year, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, you know, I should have visited. Oh, I'm so sorry. So that's what he said. He came back, he sat down with his mom and said, I'm really sorry, Mom. I've been gone for a week and I haven't visited. And she looks at him, scrunches up her nose and says, you were just here yesterday. So I said, how did that feel? He said, I felt like somebody punched me in the gut. Like, you know, what do you mean? You didn't even notice that I was gone. So that's us, fully functional, full of guilt and other icky emotions, trying to deal with the fact that this person lives every day new. If anybody's seen the movie 50 First Dates, kind of the same thing.
Okay.
So basically you're in this situation where the loved one doesn't get the guilt and the sadness. You do. And so I said, first of all, this is a blessing that she's at this stage where she doesn't keep track of your visits. I was talking with another client yesterday and she said, my mom's, you know, it says that I don't visit long enough, but I'm there for 2 hours. And I said, well, but they have no concept of time. And so to them, if you went to the bathroom and came back, this is a brand new visit. And so that they don't know that you were just there for an hour and a half, used the restroom and then came back. It's like, you didn't stay very long this last time. So having that conscious time, you know, realizing that the blessing behind it is that you can release the guilt.
Yes.
Because they don't know what day it is, what time it is. I mean, at that stage, who cares what time it is? And it's snack time or it's activity time or it's dinner time, but it's not 2:00 or 5:00. And so what this does is gives you the freedom. If you give yourself the grace to take this attitude, it gives you the freedom to go live your life. And that's what your loved one would have wanted in the first place, is that you don't come visit me all the time. Don't be obsessed with me. I'm in a wonderful care community of people who care about me. And I see them and I build relationships. And that's a whole other question, right? Is because sometimes as family members, we feel threatened by the relationships that are being developed with these caregivers. My mother loved her caregivers. Shout out to Davina at Rock Creek. You know, Mom she just loved them and she thought they were fun and funny and they took such good care of her. And then I'd show up and it'd be like, what am I, chopped liver? And so, but what I eventually evolved to and why I wrote the book, because it's like, okay, here's all the mistakes I make. Don't make those. And then being able to release and say, okay, it doesn't matter if I'm there for 45 minutes or 2 hours. It doesn't matter that I'm gone for a week, as long as she knows I love her and that I am coming to visit once in a while, at least, which in this case was twice a week. All's good. It's all right. And I think giving ourselves that permission is really hard and also very important to our well-being and our health.
That's good advice. I know we have 2 questions, one from Mary and one from Sandy. May I put them on the screen for you to consider?
Sure.
The first one comes from Mary. I believe Mary's from Ohio. And she asks, my parents, who are in the mid-80s, still live on their own. My dad's doctor has said he has dementia. Is there any reason to test to see if he has Alzheimer's? His mom did have Alzheimer's. What would you say to Mary as she's thinking through this question?
Sure. Thank you for that. And thank you, Mary, for your question. So it really depends on who actually, when you say the doctor. So to get a true diagnosis, you need to go to a neurologist, not a PCP, not a primary care physician. Secondly, if you really want to test him to see kind of where he's at, you can go to mybrainguide.org. They have both an audible, which I wouldn't advise, but there's a visual questionnaire that you can go through that will kind of give you an idea of where your dad is at in this stage. Why is that important? Because if he does have Alzheimer's, and by the way, there's a genetic marker, an APOE4 genetic marker for Alzheimer's. That doesn't guarantee you have Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's, last I read, was only 5% of those diagnosed with Alzheimer's actually were genetic cases. So not a predominant amount, possible, but not necessarily probable. And so what you want to know, though, is if he does, because there's 4 different types of dementia. Actually, there's 70 different types of dementia. The top 4 are Alzheimer's is 60 to 80% of those diagnosed with dementia. Next up is vascular dementia, followed by Lewy body dementia. And lastly, for those between the ages of 45 and 65, frontotemporal dementia. So with Alzheimer's in particular, or any dementia, you want to know where you are. It's a benchmark. So being able to take, the MIMSA test, which is the mini memory state exam, every state has it, every physician has it. And if not, Alzheimer's Foundation of America actually has screening sites. Just go to their website. They also have lots of activities for caregivers to do with at home if they're taking care of their loved one at home. And so what you want to do is know what that benchmark is. So to use the mini memory state exam as an example, it's 30 questions. If you get between 24 and 30 of the tasks, it's tasks and questions, correct, then might be mild cognitive impairment. If you are between 18 and 24, you're early stage dementia, early stage Alzheimer's. If you're between 18 and 12, you're moderate, and then below 12 is obviously severe. And I watched Mom go, I think her first test, she was 22, then she was 16, and then she was 12. So, but this is the average journey for someone with Alzheimer's is 4 to 8 years after diagnosis. So you think about that. If you don't have a diagnosis, then you don't know when that 4 to 8 years starts. And that's important for preparation of you personally, them physically. So where are they going to live for living arrangements, financially, and just in general, what's your care plan? And that's really what I help a lot of my clients work through is what's your care plan? If this happens, then we do this. If that happens, then we do that. And so really being able to understand where they are, get that benchmark now, and then decide from there, what's your plan for these 4 to 8 years in order to make sure that your dad gets the best care possible, because that's really what this is about.
And did you say the Alzheimer's Association of America screening site?
No, Alzheimer's Foundation of America, AFA.org. Yeah.
AFA.org. Okay.
Yeah.
And they have screening sites that will help you with navigating with a professional where you might be at. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Alzheimer's Foundation of America.
And I'm actually a screening site. So.
Oh, you can do. You can
believe it or not, I'm a site. Yes, and there's several care communities within almost every city that are screening sites, AFA screening sites. So when you go to, I think it's alzfoundation.org is their website. Then when you go there, then it'll say screening sites, and then you can put in your zip code and you can find one. Take your dad there and find out what, really, and again, there's no hardcore diagnosis without an MRI. But in reality, you don't really need to go that far. If he's struggling with tasks and recall of words and conversation, then odds are it's Alzheimer's. But it's always good to know where they are. Get a benchmark. Absolutely. So you know how long this journey is going to be.
Okay. I'm curious your perspective, because part of Mary's question might be just, should I know whether it's mild cognitive impairment or Alzheimer's? But it might also be, should I worry about this test to see if it's Alzheimer's or FTD or Lewy body or vascular? Like, is there any benefit to really trying to figure out what kind of dementia it is versus just?
The test very much differentiates. So the test will tell you whether it's Alzheimer's versus something else. So with Lewy body, for instance, there's different behaviors that happen. FTD is age related more than anything, along with behavior. So if you're between 45 and 65, that's most likely FTD or early onset Alzheimer's. So again, that's where a neurologist comes into play. And then vascular dementia, if he's had issues with high blood pressure or heart disease, that's most likely the type of dementia that he has. And what that means, though, is that their capacities will be different. So as I mentioned, my mom, her brain stopped remembering words and conversation, and then forgot to swallow. So we thought we were going to lose her in 2010 because her brain was not telling her throat muscles how to swallow. And so we got through that. She was on hospice 4 times. That was an interesting journey, and love the hospice people. And so hospice is not about death. It's about getting additional care when your loved one needs it, and then you can get back off of it. So just clarification there. And then we're basically with vascular dementia, you're going to get that angry, paranoid type of behaviors. You're going to see that it's not that they don't remember words or they don't remember tasks. They most likely are the ones that lose things. But again, taking the exam is really what helps you get clear on, what the situation is. And 1 out of 9 people over the age of 65 are diagnosed with Alzheimer's. That's 11% of our population. Wow. So, it's really important. And as the baby boomers age, we're going to probably see that number, especially based on our diet and lifestyle. It's a big deal. But the other thing about dementia, real quickly, because I know we have other questions, is it could be pseudo dementia. If they're dehydrated, if they have crossplay in their medications, in other words, that the medications are affecting their brain and when they combine together. So there's that. Then there's also lack of nutrition, lack of exercise. So dementia in general is the fact that we have lived for so long without oxygen to the brain that we've allowed, or diabetes in particular, the sugar gets through the blood-brain barrier and creates amyloid plaques and tau proteins. We naturally have both of those, amyloid proteins and tau proteins. But when we offset the balance with lack of oxygen and increased sugar, those guys go mad. It's like putting water on a sponge. It just explodes. And so, but we can't control where those plaques are formed, which creates the different behaviors. So that's more into the science than you probably wanted me to go. But really, those are the things that if it's dehydration, stress, lack of exercise, lack of oxygen, basically to the brain, those are the things that create pseudo dementia behaviors. So, and dehydration is actually one of the number 1 reasons. So get that man some water, make sure he's drinking, 64 ounces or more of water a day. See how he does. He could just be dehydrated. It's really hard to tell. Again, that's why you do the exam.
Yeah, so important. Yeah, there's some significant factors that can really look a lot like dementia. If you don't get a battery of good tests, including nutrition levels and things like that, you might be assuming something that's not true. That's
exactly. And boy, wouldn't that be a relief?
Yes. All right. We got a question from Sandy, but before we do that, I just want to call out real quick that Sandy and Mary each just won your book.
Yay! Congratulations. So this book is available on Amazon. And it has all 5-star reviews. So awesome. Congratulations. I hope you find it helpful.
Yeah. So in the text, I put a cell phone number that you can text with your address. You don't have to put that on Facebook for everybody in the world to see. Just text that to me, and I'll make sure that Pam will get one of your book, and I'll get one of you the other book. And we'll go from there. All right. So next question is, and Mary says, thank you so much for the book. Next question is from Sandy. Sandy says, how is a typical day in a memory care facility structured as far as getting residents up to when they go to bed, as far as giving the residents all the cues they need to brush teeth, shower, et cetera? Is a staff member doing that all the time? So what can you do to speak to this question? And I'm sure it's different in every memory care community, but what's some of your thoughts after having been in quite a few of them and seen different structures and models?
So great question, first of all, Sandy, and thank you for asking it. So what's going to happen? This is where it comes down to on my website, alzheimersfamilyconsulting.com. It actually has a caregiver tool that compares care communities. And one of the questions you need to be asking is, what certifications do the caregivers have around dementia? And also the exact question you just asked, walk me through the day. And what that means is that, some care communities have a points-based system where you get additional help depending on what your loved one needs. Other care communities say, nope, soup to nuts. You pay one price and you get everything. So for mom's situation, she was not ambulatory and couldn't speak. So basically, she had everything done for her. And that's not the life she would have wanted to live, but we were blessed with really good caregivers and people who cared. So yes, they basically, our example of, and the way that honestly, I thought it was the best care. It was almost as good as care I could have provided. Actually, it was a lot better. I don't have the skills, the background at the time. I was just a daughter running my own company and trying to make sure my mom had the best care possible. And Rock Creek provided that. And so basically she'd get up in the morning and they, take care of her teeth. If it was a shower day, the showers are varied depending on the schedule, right? So everybody gets a shower sometime on a Monday and sometime on a Friday. By the way, the whole shower thing, let it go. All right. They don't need to be showered more than twice a week. It doesn't matter if they're at home or in a care community, twice is enough. They're not running, around a track and sweating. So let that one go. They don't need showers every day. And that's actually one of the things that I talk about in my book, Let It Go, because we as family members tend to get wrapped around the most minute things that really are not necessarily in the best interest of our loved one and that bother the heck out of the care communities. Because it's like, really, this is not part of our process. It's not beneficial to your loved one. So understand that these are experts. These are professionals. Let them do their job. And believe me, I could have used someone telling me that, back when mom was in her care community. I'm pretty sure that Rock Creek thought the same thing. So the idea here would be that she would get up in the morning, get done whatever needed to be done, teeth, get her dressed, pick out her clothing. And you can be specific, like mom always wore a sweater or a jacket. And so she always had a sweater or a jacket on, go to breakfast. And then after breakfast, everybody gets to sit for a bit and let their tummies settle, maybe watch, a TV program or a cartoon or something like that. Then it was typically either an activity or a snack, something light. And then music or, really it depends on the care community's setup, but there was always music or a puzzle or painting. Mom loved to paint. Jewelry. So being able to play with jewelry and dress up where the guys would be over maybe throwing a ball or doing something like that to get some exercise. Tons of activities interspersed with food and snacks because you want to keep their calorie count up. So that's really important and keep them hydrated. So the other thing you would ask the care community is, I'd want to see my nutrition record. So how much food did mom eat? I could access those at any time. How much food did mom eat? Breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks. And then how much fluids did she eat? And the caregiver should be writing all of that down per individual to track this person's individual needs so that if they're gaining weight, it's like, okay, we're going to cut back on that hot fudge sundae, Loretta. Or if they're losing weight, it's like, okay, so why is that happening? Are we not feeding? Is it too hard for her to chew the food? Do we need to puree it or do we need to chop it? And that level of attention, when people think about memory care, the amount of detailed attention, observance, details that have to be written down, behavioral observations, it's huge, you guys. It is huge. And it gives me chills, actually, because I was so grateful to have a care community that did all of those things, that if you need to replay this video and write this all down, I would do that because this is what a care community, this is what you should expect from your memory care community. And then my big thing was that mom never went back to bed unless she was really tired. Like if she was really tired, they would say, okay, this is unusual. Let's take her and give her a nap because maybe something else is going on with her. So, but for the most part, they're out and busy. Why does that help if they're really busy and they're keeping stimulated? One, the brain needs stimulation and socialization. That, boy, if we didn't learn anything from 2020, we learned that keeping in your own room by yourself is bad for your brain.
Not good.
So socialization and stimulation are critical. And those come in so many different ways, and some very subtle ways, even just sitting in her wheelchair, watching people go by and listening to their conversations. That was stimulation that she doesn't get at home. And so then on top of that is, the fact that she would not be restless. Otherwise known, everybody calls it sundowners. But basically they don't get restless in the afternoon because they're so tired by the end of the day. They go to bed, they go to sleep, and they have much healthier sleep and a much better demeanor because they're getting the rest, because they're stimulated during the day. This is all the science behind why going to memory care is so important. And in my opinion, staying at home, these are all the things you miss. And that's your personal choice. But that's ultimately the difference between the two in my mind.
Okay. Well, I think we've about run out of time, but we got one more question for you, Pam. But I do want everybody to know, if we don't take any more questions today, here's what you need to do. Text #answers to 360-526-6201. Anytime, even if you're watching the replay of this, go ahead and text your questions there so we can get them on the next show. But in the meantime, we do have one question from a friend, Tom. Tom asks, how should families approach financial matters, investments, and real estate? Hire a lawyer, appoint a guardian, establish a trust. What in the world should a family start to do related to dementia and financial matters? Thank you, Tom, very much. Good question.
Thanks, Tom. So this is a bit out of my realm, but I want to also make sure that that the first person you should be talking with is your financial advisor. Okay. Because there should be creating a plan for you for the what if scenario of dementia and Alzheimer's specifically, because that does require memory care for the most part, because it requires that much attention. But, some people do keep their loved one at home. Either way, it's an expensive endeavor. And so what my parents did is they just socked away money all their lives. And we went through $450,000 during their visit, during their entire journey. And so the financial advisor also has the capacity these days to talk about either a long-term care plan. Now, if your loved one doesn't already have a long-term care plan, right now, those are really not seen as, if people my age, I would not invest in that necessarily, because the coverage per day is significantly less. The long-term care insurance companies figured out, hey, this stuff's expensive. We weren't counting on this. So they've reduced their coverage per day. It's an option that you should have a conversation with your financial advisor. So the documents you need to have in place, write these down and go make them happen with an estate attorney. What happens is they're going to create a durable power of attorney, which is all the legal stuff, permission to do whatever it is they need to do to act on the loved one's behalf who has dementia. The next one is healthcare power of attorney. So, by the way, you have an estate plan. The state that you live in is the one who determines what happens with your loved one, not you. So take the action now to get a durable power of attorney, legal one. The healthcare power of attorney, don't use ones online, by the way. They're very generic, and state laws override them. So it's really important for you to make sure that you at least go and get that complimentary hour with an estate attorney. If you want to use the ones online as your foundation, and then give them to them and say, could you please review this and see if there's any modification we need to make in order to ensure that that's a good, that they're robust. A will, which only works after they pass. A lot of people get all those confused. All right. So while they're alive, but can't function and make decisions for themselves, healthcare, power attorney, durable power attorney. Will is when they pass. That's also important to understand what happens to assets. And then lastly, a trust. They can talk to you about a trust because that really protects the properties that your loved one has. But it may be that you need them to not be in a trust in order for you to be able to have access to their funds, which is what the durable power attorney gives you. So guardianship is a whole other ball of wax. The power of attorneys provide the ultimate decision-making privileges. A guardianship is when there isn't any power of attorney or healthcare power of attorney or durable power of attorney. So guardianship is a whole other thing where the loved one can't take care of themselves, but you don't have a power of attorney that dictates that you're the power of attorney. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Financial advisor and estate attorneys would be the first two stops I would make, and then take their advice on additional resources that you might need to access.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, Pam, I just love the enthusiasm you bring to helping families and consulting with them. If a family did want to have a private conversation with you, not on the air for the whole world to see, as our brave Sandy and our brave Tom and brave Mary did today. And thank you so much, Tom. Great. We really appreciate you, Tom. And Mary, thank you as well for your comments. How would they connect with you if they wanted to have a private conversation with you?
So I do offer the first 30 minutes free for our consultation. Most of the consultations do last more than that. But if you have a big obstacle or one question, then we can go after that, and then you can decide if we want to continue to work together. But you would either email me at pam@itsnotthatsimple.com. To get more information about me and to get to look at my resources and everything, I actually have two websites now. The one that talks about care and tools and that type of thing is my company name, which is Alzheimer's Family Consulting. No apostrophe on the Alzheimer's. It's all one word, alzheimersfamilyconsulting.com. And then It's Not That Simple is the one for the book and additional speaking opportunities. I split them out because I wanted to make sure that people knew the difference between the book and what it is that I do in working with clients. So alzheimersfamilyconsulting.com is the place to go to book a time with me, or just email me at pam@itsnotthatsimple.com. And, note that you were part of this, listening to this particular broadcast, so that I know where you came from and have an idea of what you know based on this conversation.
Beautiful. I do need to read one more comment that just came in from the CEO of an organization that builds dementia-friendly kind of virtual FaceTime kind of things. Called Sochi Avi. They've really tried to make conversating with your loved one really easy. She says, "Thank you to Pam for sharing her experiences. They are so genuine and heartfelt." So that comes from Paula Mueller. So thank you again, Pam, for today. And we look forward to seeing you all at the next session, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Bye-bye.